Hi, thank you all for coming. I'm Cheryl Dorchinsky from the Atlanta Israel Coalition, and I want you all to know that we are thrilled to have you here. We will have a Q&A open, and you could type questions in at any time, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as we can. I want to introduce Ian and Virag, and I know that I could talk about y'all all day long, but I'm going to let you talk and make a quick introduction and bio for yourself. So, Ian, if you don't mind kicking us off.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, Cheryl. And first of all, Cheryl, thank you for all your service and all your help, especially during this extremely excruciating, trying time where Israel needs everyone, everyone who loves Israel, Jews, non-Jews, everybody's support is needed. Now is the time. It's the moment of truth. Who really supports Israel? And nobody supports it more than yourself and has given back more than you, Cheryl. So thank you. My name's Ian Halperin. I'm a #1 New York Times bestselling author, award-winning filmmaker. My new book, Bigot, it arrived, if you could see it, it's called Bigot. It's about contemporary anti-Semitism. It arrived a few days before the horrific October 7th attacks, and I'm really looking forward to a great evening, an informative evening with everybody tonight. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Ian. Virag?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for having me and hosting this panel discussion. And as Ian said, a shout out to Atlanta Israel Coalition and what you are doing. Just today, I learned, that you went to schools and hosted painting events and crafts event. And I saw what you showed me, like these kids painting for IDF soldiers, and it warms my heart during these dark times. So thank you for all the initiatives. And Ian and I, also go back. So I'm so honored to be on this panel with you. So my name is Virag. I'm also known as the Almost Jewish. And as Ian mentioned, we are in this together, Jews and non-Jews. So I would be the non-Jewish person here. I am, as an activist, I act as Almost Jewish, and I'm also having the honor to be on the JNF-USA crowd or crew as the head of the JNF-USA Speakers Bureau. So that is what I'm doing. And thank you for this again.
So we were very fortunate. Many of you sent in questions ahead of time, and I want to make sure that we can get to all of them. And I guess the first question that I'm going to give to you, Ian, is about the media. We see that there's blatant bias in the media. I know I recently had a run-in myself where I was interviewed at a Jewish Voice of Peace protest. And by the way, for anyone who doesn't know who they are, they really do act anything but Jewish and peaceful. It's just, personally firsthand experience. It's been terrible. There was a reporter there, and I explained to that reporter on camera with a microphone that they do not speak for the Jewish community, that we had a rally with 4,000 people, and there was maybe 250 of them there, and most of them were not actually Jewish. And they weren't behaving in a way. We don't shut down roads, we don't shut down buildings, we're not trying to cause chaos. It's not really, anything that I'm used to. And they left that out. They basically took a clip from my interview that had nothing to do with the actual real rally itself and our community. And when they announced it, they said, and now we're going to hear about the ceasefire the Jewish community wants. And my jaw dropped. I'm like, excuse me? 6 people don't talk for all of us. So Ian, what would you suggest we do as individuals to try to make sure our voices are heard?
Well, luckily we have forums like this, and we don't have to get on our hands and knees and beg the media anymore. And we have all these social media platforms. Look, I've written 27 books, most of them bestsellers. I've produced, directed maybe 35 movies. I've never had a problem getting media exposure. I've been on every show you can imagine, from the Today Show multiple times, Good Morning America, CNN, Fox, every network in the world. And when I released this book, Bigot, nobody wants to have me on. They say contemporary anti-Semitism isn't important now. And it's probably my best book. And that mirrors the mentality of the media. They say it's not important. Well, hey, guys, it is very important, because even before October 7th, contemporary anti-Semitism, unfortunately, was thriving. Look at what happened in Pittsburgh, random acts of anti-Semitism, violent attacks in the UK, in France, in the United States. And it's been a very concerning thing. And they want to control the narrative, the media. A lot of these media organizations are run by Qatar, Cheryl. They're owned by Qatar, including CNN has a lot of money from Qatar in it. And they don't want to deal with these important subjects. You know, I say this. If I'll use Roger Waters of Pink Floyd as an example. He's been spewing anti-Semitic rhetoric for years. He's one of the focuses of my book. And Kanye West, okay, they're, for some reason, when they go against the Jews, Roger Waters, he's allowed to tour all over the world. People, one of the richest selling tours of all time. And he gets up with an anti-Israel narrative night in, night out. Now, if Roger Waters was dressed in a white sheet, God forbid, calling for the re-enslavement of African Americans, he'd be shut down after concert one, let alone probably killed. But with the Jewish people in Israel, he gets a free pass. And what he says is ridiculous. I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor. He says that Israel's worse than Nazi Germany. It's the most false, egregious statement. Essentially, basically, he's re-murdering 6 million people who aren't here to defend themselves. So the media has been highly irresponsible during this, reporting very biased, very anti-Israel. I mean, what are we supposed to do? Hamas comes in, slaughters 1,400 people, murders them. If it was any other country, what would you do? You're just not going to sit back and take it, let alone rape women. I mean, it's been in the news. 2 months later, it finally makes the news how many women have been raped and abused and still being raped while under captivity in these tunnels. Now, if this was any other people, it would be riots breaking out all over the place. But for some reason, with the Jewish people, the oldest hatred of all time, people get a free pass. It's completely unacceptable. And that's why I suggest to everybody here, and thank you, everybody who's attending this, for being in this important conference tonight. I really ask everyone to share their true feelings via social media. And it's the only way. We don't need the mainstream media anymore, because it's a very biased organizations. And trust me, I've worked with all of them: CNN, Fox, ABC, NBC, the E channel. I've done work for all of them, and all of them, unfortunately, for some reason, have very anti-Semitic platforms, and there are people who are controlling it and not allowing the truth to get out, and it's very concerning.
Yeah, I second you what you're saying, Ian. Something to add as a tool beyond social media. I really want to encourage everyone, regardless of our frustrations, and sometimes that we feel, you know, we are kicking walls wherever we look and wherever we go. Who is this new fellow here?
Oh, we got Jerry Wagshaw here. That's great. He could take my lower third, but hey, Jerry.
Wonderful. So
where did Jerry go?
Jerry, put on your camera. Jerry's an Emmy Award winning producer from ABC TV for 18 years.
Wonderful. So he can chip in on this topic as well, probably.
Yeah, we'd love him to. Where'd you go,
Yeah.
Jerry?
Jerry, come on. We'd like to hear some words from you too. Thank
Right.
you, Jerry.
Until he's coming, I'm going to finish my thoughts because I
Yeah.
do
Thank you, Virag.
know that even though we are frustrated and we do feel that there is no one to talk to, I want you to hold those reporters and journalists accountable. Because I agree with Ian, mainstream media is something, you know, we can say, if I would be in Israel, Harta Barta, okay, we can ignore them, but can we really? We cannot, because the mass majority of population still gets their news from these tidbits that they see on CNN and other media outlets. So here is an example what you can do in practice. Just over the weekend, there was a conference in Denver by JNF-USA. There was a fellow journalist who was invited to interview us, a couple of people from the conference. And the whole topic was about how to deal with the protesters who were protesting the conference. Mind you, if you follow the news, you know that those protesters were extremely violent. I mean, just the copy-paste of what you are seeing in New York. They were banging the windows. We needed a whole SWAT team to make the whole conference safe and sound. So there's this journalist who pretends to genuinely listen to our answers. I show them the death threats that I personally received just for speaking at the conference, and how I was, you know, called the genocide propagandist racist just because I condemned what happened on October 7th. So we prove all these things to the journalist. The same afternoon, the video and the article report comes out with the title, JNF-USA is accusing the protesters of antisemitism. We immediately call him, we didn't accuse, we proved. And this journalist was at the conference, saw the SWAT team, saw the violent rioters outdoors, and yet in the article, he compared both sides, saying both sides are afraid of each other. That is journalism and reporting 2023. Then I went on his social media. He is the reporter for CBS Denver. And guess what? This journalist is not so neutral. He was posting so much anti-Israel posts that he should not have been even among the journalists who were covering the conference. Knowing this, I wrote an open letter to both CBS and personally to him, and I'm awaiting with the answer. And even though we feel, you know, it's nothing and there will be no consequences, the more we do that, the more consequences we are going to have, because I personally sent him the death threats, and yet he didn't mention that. He said they were peaceful protesters. So again, and don't forget, just like again what Ian said, media is about sensationalism. That's what brings them money, especially in sensitive times and about delicate topics. The more triggering they are, the more money they get. So they have no intention or desire or goal to actually report factually. That doesn't bring them money and viewership. So we need to call them hold accountable, because if anything was good 50 years ago, is that back then when a journalist or a reporter made a mistake, they had to apologize. And unfortunately, this is what we lost today. And I do believe we need to get back to this somehow. And this is up to us how.
Hey, Jerry, welcome. How are you, Jerry?
I'm good. I've just found out. Thank you, Virag.
Hi, Jerry.
Hi. Let
me just introduce Jerry again before you start. Jerry's a multiple Emmy award-winning TV producer for ABC TV. He produced Good Morning America at Nightline, and I've been friends with Jerry for over 40 years. So, Jerry, the floor is yours. Please weigh in. Go ahead.
Okay. I thought I was going to be a participant, and I was ready for that, but it appears that I've been thrust by technology into the limelight, so I will
Welcome, Jerry.
Welcome. It appears that it looked like I was some kind of hacker, so I think at the beginning they thought I was hacking into the system.
Definitely thought
and
you
they
were.
I thought you
stopped
were a
me.
Zoom bomber, yeah.
The Zoom bomber, but I'm not. I'm pretty harmless. I agree with what Ian is saying, and I want to talk about how do I pronounce it? Is it Virag?
Virag, with a gay, yeah, Virag.
Virag. So I was, of course, watching and reading about what happened to the people who were attacked especially particularly the sexual violence against the women. And I agree with Ian that I think that if that had happened to any other group, I can't imagine. It's just the reaction is kind of shocking when you think about it. Just the idea that it reminds me of something I read about false equivalency, that there's always two sides to every story and that they're equally valid. So if you look at for example, we look back at Nazism, or we cover any story as a journalist, which I've been for a long time, you say, well, there's two sides to every story. So you say, okay, that's the myth of false equivalency. So you say, okay, so we're gonna do a story right now on the concentration camps, and we're gonna talk to Jews that are stuck in the concentration, as if they could talk if they were in the camps. But then we're gonna hear Hitler's side. Now the question is, do you want to get a comment from Hitler? Yeah, of course you want to get a comment from Hitler, but do both sides have the same equivalence? Do they weigh the same? How much weight do you give to a guy who wants to exterminate a people? And that's the issue, is that people confuse the idea of hearing from somebody to get a comment and the fact that because there's another side that somehow they must be equal. The truth is not always equal. A person who is a sadist who attacks helpless children, babies, and women in a situation where they can't defend themselves is sadistic, violent lunatic, doing it for a political reason to terrorize a population so that people will be so scared that they won't do anything anymore. It's been, as I'm sure I'm not a historian, but this is not new. This has happened before as a tactic, putting people's heads on poles and raping women, and it goes back a long time.
Here it goes back to Rome, Greece, the Byzantine Empire, medieval Europe,
exactly.
modern Europe, North America, and the UK. Go ahead, Jerry. Sorry.
So the question is, again, this myth of false equivalency. So like what you were saying, Virag, right? Virag. What you were saying about the idea that you gave this person a glimpse of the truth, but somehow he wanted to go and find this and decide that the two sides were equal. Well, the two sides are not always equal. And that is just something I thought about when I was going through a couple of personal things and I was dealing with my relatives, and trying to talk to them. Sometimes the truth is that somebody is an oppressor and somebody is the oppressed. Sometimes the truth is that somebody is evil and somebody is good. That doesn't give them equal standing, is all I wanted to say.
So, Jerry, when media reports something that you blatantly know is false, like how as an individual do we make a difference and make a connection? Like what Virag said is wonderful, writing in and expressing and giving proof, but how serious do they take that? Like at what point?
They take it very seriously, Cheryl. I think, it comes down, unfortunately, with many things, whether you work for, like I did a story on Boeing 737 MAX that was, for example, designed an airplane that was flawed, and then they continued to drive it, they continued to drive it, fly the plane, even though it was defective. I mean, the idea here is that, what were we talking about? You were talking about, sorry, I skipped a beat there for a second.
Just what we can do as
it comes down to, so in any company, there are people who won't do certain things. And as journalists, I think it's a question of personal integrity. Whether you want to be somebody who, as you were describing, just looking for ratings and doesn't care what they want to report. Hopefully those kinds of people don't keep their jobs very long, but if they do, I feel sorry for them personally. And as a person, I think, Cheryl, I think you can write in. I think you can say something because, down the road, I mean, somebody could listen. There are people who are opinion leaders within the media who are managers, and you know what they do? I do read almost every single email I get, and I maybe get 1,000 a day, but I read them all, and I usually respond to most people. And I'm not an opinion leader by any means, but I'm saying that I think you can make a difference like that. I think if you see something that's factually incorrect, I think you make some noise, I think you can do something about it.
So not only writing in could be helpful, but I think, we'll talk about social media advocacy right now.
Yes.
When a station or a news publication, anyone in the media publishes something, you can always get on social media and comment. Now, I typically, as rule of thumb, say, you shouldn't be giving people who are haters any attention on social media. It just gets them more views, and it basically gives the algorithms on any of these social media reason to continue to display hateful content on your page. It's not pleasant. So I would definitely advise against that. But if you see an article, say something.
Right.
You have a voice. We all have a voice.
Public discourse is key. And you have to look at the history of relations between Jews and non-Jews and get into the public discourse, the history in a solid fashion. There are good forms on social media. Not everything is just, there's craziness, but there's also very concrete discussion. I just want to mention one thing to everybody here. First off, thank you everyone for attending. And Cheryl, I hope you don't mind me saying this. I have followed your journey, and just thank you on behalf of everyone, Jews and non-Jews, who support Israel. Thank you for your incredible work. And folks, I just want to let you know, I've been on this journey fighting contemporary anti-Semitism. I filmed the movie Wish You Weren't Here, and then I wrote the book BIGOT was published a few days before the attacks. And I've dealt with everyone from all the organizations, everyone you could think of. I've attended the conferences, I've keynotes, speaking at some of the conferences, but I've never met anybody more committed to helping Israel than Cheryl Dorchinsky. And no, let me finish, please. As the
Sorry
son,
for interrupting.
as the son of a Holocaust survivor, to find somebody so committed and so perceptive and so open about being inclusive and making everybody feel special in the fight to promote and save Israel, nobody has done it better. And I've met everybody from all the organizations than Cheryl. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, folks, I really urge you to support her, the Atlanta Israel Coalition, because she's one of the only people I've met doing this as a 501c3. Most of the organizations, I got to be honest, that I've met, they're driving fancy cars, fancy offices, big expense accounts. Well, what about the money to help the Jews? And I always call them out on that. But with Cheryl, every penny goes towards saving Israel and helping Jewish people. And that's why I support her unwaveringly. Because Cheryl, you were just in Israel, correct?
Yes.
And could you share some of, she's bringing stuff to first responders, to the IDF. She's really making a difference. And that's the key. And I'm not trying to berate any of these other organizations, but some of them are masters at fundraising, but all they're doing is fundraising. They're driving fancy cars, traveling, but they're not making a difference. Cheryl is actually making a difference. So could you tell people, Cheryl, if you don't mind, sorry for skipping the narrative here, but it's so important to me, this. Could you tell people about your journey to Israel after October 7th and what you were up to there, please?
I can. I think that, the main thing, again, is if anyone has time and interest, social media. I tried to live stream from there. I tried to share everything on there because I think it's really important that we bear witness and we share the truth. And you know what? Every single person on this call can do it. You don't have to go to Israel to do that. it's a society where people are just taking, flashes from like TikTok. Someone asked a wonderful question. How do you get people out of their bubbles when they're just seeing everything on TikTok? Well, we have to go into the schools. We have to go and we need to share and we need to tell the truth and we need to speak up because we can't afford to be a silent majority anymore. We need to be able to support each other and unite. And it doesn't matter to me what your religion is or what your political views are. The truth is the truth, and we need to all join together and tell it. So Israel being there was incredibly powerful. It was so meaningful, and I'm already trying to get back there in January, because there's so many more things to share and to tell and to do. We all can play a role in making a difference. And we're seeing some of the hate and hostility here. Recently, like in Atlanta, I don't know if you all heard. I'm sure, Jerry, you did because I texted you and you told me you heard. But I was genuinely like absolutely devastated and heartbroken on Friday when someone decided to light themselves on fire.
Oh my, yes,
wrapped in a
course,
Palestinian flag. Like, this is not the norm here in the US. This should never be the norm here in the US. And this should not be like, oh, this poor woman wasn't heard. Like, this is common in the Middle East. This isn't like something that, just started on Friday here in Atlanta. And we need to stand up and say enough is enough with the lies, with the hate, with the Holocaust accusations. I mean, it's insane. And so being in Israel was my opportunity to share a lot of that. We were in a bomb shelter for quite a bit of time. And I said, like, who else lives this way? Like, these people live this way when there isn't a war. It's terrible. It's a nightmare. Nobody should know from it. And nobody wants to see innocent civilians die from anywhere. But we're in a war, and we need to be able to stand up and speak out, because, again, somebody mentioned good and evil. Ian, was that you?
I think it was Jerry.
Jerry?
mentioned it.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
I
Jerry.
mentioned good and evil, yes, an old
Thank you,
concept.
Jerry. That's what we're facing right now. I mean, it truly is. And we need to be able to support each other because there's so much hate and so many lies out there, and it's overwhelming. I said you shouldn't respond to the haters. I mean that. I look at the Atlanta Israel Coalition page, and 90% of the people that comment, either I suspect they're not real accounts, or they're in countries that before October 7th, Israelis weren't allowed in. So you have to think, do these people really have a clue as to what they're talking about? They probably never met a Jewish person. They never met an Israeli, and they're living in countries that are very hostile to Israel and always have been. So what are we doing here? We're going to have to share. We're going to have to share positive posts. Go to Atlanta Israel Coalition, go to Virag's page. Ian, I don't know how much you share on social media, but I would definitely say that you're a solid source. Jerry, your news, I know you're looking over it, and you actually have a conscience. We should be watching more stations like yours, because the media is only as good as the person who's telling it, in my opinion.
But the key, Cheryl, is we have to get, I'm saying this, folks, from the bottom of my heart. I'm pleading with you all, because I have been, look, I'm the son of a Holocaust survivor, and I started filming a movie about contemporary anti-Semitism, which came out a few years ago, called Wish You Weren't Here. And then I wrote this book, Bigot, now, about contemporary anti-Semitism. But I've interviewed everyone from the Pope to Tony Blair to Dershowitz to all the leaders of the Jewish organizations. I have never met anybody more committed and more legit than Cheryl Dorchinsky. And I'm pleading with you all to support her. In a time like this is the moment of truth for everybody. We could all talk and talk, but when the moment of truth comes, Hemingway once wrote a book about this, and he said, in the moment of truth, we find out who we really are. And in the moment of truth, I'm pleading with every one of you in this room to support Cheryl, to donate, but also to spread the word. And I'll give you my word, she's making a difference. And that's the key. She's been more committed than anybody I've seen out there. And I've interviewed probably thousands over the last 7 years in the book and the movie. And that's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to support a true supporter of Israel and the Jewish people. And I also want to give a shout out to Anita in Canada, Anita Bromberg, who's wonderful too, who also does amazing things. But to everyone, please, let's get behind one organization, the Atlanta Israel Coalition, that is making a difference. Unlike, and look, I respect all of the other organizations, Stand With Us, and all, look, I can name them all. But a lot of them, only 10, 12% of the money is going to the cause. And that's why I'm here, because I've seen it firsthand with Cheryl. It's almost 100% of the money is going to the cause. It's unheard of. And that's why we got to get behind her and make a difference right now. The time, again, is the moment of truth is now. If you're pro-Israel, pro-Jewish, I don't care if you're Jewish, non-Jew. Look, Virag's a wonderful example of a non-Jew who believes in Israel. And I've worked other events with her. Virag, do you remember we worked on the tennis project together, which brought underprivileged kids to Israel to play tennis? Jews and non-Jews. It's not, look, just because you're Jewish, folks, I hate to break it to you, you're not immune from being an anti-Semitism. But the moment of truth is here.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you,
so
Cheryl.
much. I know, Virag, you've been saying that you're going to answer some of the questions we've gotten.
Yes, I want to go through them because they are related to social media. And I think so many people today, especially since October 7th, want to do something, but you feel like you are stopped by the social media companies. I hear you, I feel you, but the situation is not that bad and we can fight back. So first of all, there is a question. Aren't people stuck in their online bubbles and not exposed to the real news? So they just, are in the echo chamber. So many get the news from TikTok and other resources with false narratives. What can you suggest we do to burst this bubble and break through with truths and facts? So a couple of things here. Number one, as Cheryl mentioned, when there are so many bots accounts are quickly checkable. If you are on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, when someone comes on your account and starts spreading, just the Free Palestine slogans or the little emojis, you can figure out whether they are bots by clicking on them. And if they were created recently, they have 0 followers, 0 posts, they are definitely bots. So just block them, delete them, report them. There is no way to interact them, and there is no purpose and reason to interact with them. However, and to answer the question, how can we get out of the echo chamber? First of all, use your special voice. And what I mean by this, in this situation, I'm a little bit lucky because I'm not Jewish, and that works for my advantage, because by default, my audience is not the usual Jewish crowd only, but beyond that, I can talk to non-Jewish people. And just as I recently mentioned at an event, you can trick the algorithm, because here's how social media works. Once you like a post, it just pushes out very similar posts. So if someone, let's say a neutral person, likes something regarding Free Palestine, after that, they are naturally only going to see those kind of posts, even if they were totally neutral to start with. From that on, social media is brainwashing them indirectly. How you can get into that circle is you do contents that trick the algorithm. Here is an example. One of my videos that went viral started with the following statement: I am pro-Palestine. I'm pro-Palestine. And it was totally like a triggering point for my audience because they didn't expect that from me. But because of that was the starting of the message, the other side or the neutral people also got the message. Obviously, the video ended with the fact, I'm pro-Palestine, hence I'm anti-Hamas. But the starting point was a trick to the algorithm. So you can get out of that. And here I really want to encourage everyone, everyone has a special voice. Someone is using pain, and it manifests itself in sarcasm and jokes. Use that. You don't know how you can tap into the other side. So the echo chamber is there. The social media platforms were designed this way, but you can get through them. So I hope this partially answered your answer, but I'm more than happy, you know, to chit chat about this like in private with anyone. The other one was a strategist told me not to challenge in public spheres slogans like from the river to the sea, and instead just go into more talking points about Hamas hostages, hate, and homeland security, and so on. Whether we agree with this or not, I don't know the strategist. Obviously, you know, probably, or maybe this person was way smarter than I am. My personal experience is that I don't agree with this. And the clear example is what the BLM movement has done. If you remember, the BLM had a slogan, and whoever went against that slogan, they called them out viciously, vocally, publicly, and, you know, shamelessly. So with the statements like from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, it has been acknowledged by several public faces and the government also here and in Europe that this is incitement for hatred. This is a copy-paste from a terrorist organization's foundational charter. Meaning, if you don't call this out, you are agreeing with it. Silence, we always know, is basically an indirect agreement. You need to call that out, and you need to educate people. So don't just say, oh, you can't use that. Explain why. And most people don't even know what river, what sea, and what's in between. So calling out and educating goes hand in hand, and this is how you win. So I'm way harsher since October 7th. Before that, I was very patient. I spent hours with people even from Gaza City. Right now, my tolerance level is less skilled because of all the hatred that we are seeing. The fact that since October 7th, probably all of us are getting messages, prove it, prove that October 7th happened, definitely makes me an impatient person.
Yeah, I mean, in the US, you're allowed to be because of First Amendment, it's legal to deny the Holocaust in the US. I mean, it's just almost ridiculous. People deny, there's Holocaust deniers. I appreciate what Virag said. Could we hear from Anita? Could you bring Anita up? Because she made a point in the Q&A. And Anita is an amazing person who's done incredible work in Canada and all over the world. Could we hear from her? Is that possible? To bring Anita up, because she made a point about from the river to the sea.
Yeah, that was pretty much my answer that I was to Anita. She can, of course, come in. In the meantime, whether like Cheryl, you bring her on or not, I'm gonna answer. There's one very important question here also. Lately, I've been getting reported for non-controversial posts, threat of suspension. Any advice to combat this? Yes. Whoever is experiencing, you know, shadow blocking and threats of suspension, please reach out, because there are ways to combat that. Something that is very recent, there is an attempt coming from Qatar that they are having a bunch of people, fake accounts, specifically created for this purpose, to shut down Zionist voices. So
they've done that for decades. They've done that for decades.
Right now, there is a strategical intention. It is really hardcore out there. However, there are ways to fight it. We have a circle of people who have been done through this. My Facebook page was deleted overnight without any warning. There are ways to deal with that. So
they're infiltrating, and we have the money trail, billions of dollars into the US to do acts like that. Can we just welcome Anita for a second? Anita, are you there?
I am. I didn't put on my fancy makeup, but I'm here.
You look fantastic, Anita. Look, thank you also for all your great work and all your incredible endeavors for Israel over the years. Could you touch up on the comment you made and also in response to Virag?
Yeah, well, I think Virag's right. This strategist that advises political entities and leaders said to me, stop screaming about the river to the sea, but I don't know how you can stop. It's a genocidal call. It's the beginning, if not the middle, of hate. We're seeing it here in Canada, where I'm located, on the streets. Even the snow isn't stopping the viral hate online and the hate on our streets, and the slogans from river to the sea, swastikas with the name Jew and Israel next to it. They're going into Jewish-owned stores and taking over the facilities. They're blocking major roads and causing economic havoc. And it's just the beginning. I think we have to challenge.
Anita, the day of the attacks, the night before the attacks, I was the keynote speaker in a Muslim country in Turkey, in the city of Istanbul. I was speaking at the conference as the keynote. I had a Muslim family take me out for dinner after my speech. Everything was great. I thought, wow, we're building bridges here. The next morning I woke up to this and I saw taxis with signs, no Jews, no Israelis allowed. It's amazing I got out of there. And I'm just following up on what you're saying. Why, Anita, because you're an expert on this.
Oh, thank you.
Why is it always with the Jews? I mean,
if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't have to be in a small volunteer organization, fighting to be heard, And someone described, why are you there? Why aren't you with one of the big guys? And I said, because I enjoy being a thorn in their side. There's a major fight, and voices like Cheryl's and yours that are ready to be unapologetic Zionists, and Virag, of course. And I admire every one of you.
Virag does an amazing job.
Yeah.
Job. But Anita, let me ask you a question seriously. Why, like people like Roger Waters, he claims to be a peace activist. He says Israel is an apartheid state, which is completely false. The apartheid system in South Africa was a two-class system. Israel is not. Israel has 2 million Arab Israelis living there. They have votes. They're in the Knesset. These are false statements. If Roger Waters was such a peace activist, why isn't he protesting against Russia, China, Syria, Iran, Iraq, and all these other terrorist countries? Israel's the most democratic country in the Mideast. Women's rights, gay rights.
I think Virag and Cheryl will have the answers quicker than I do. But here, I think it's part of anti-national woke society that has picked up on Russian propaganda that has been so ingrained, combined with the unrelenting anti-Semitism, and it's a perfect storm, and we're in the midst of it.
Anita, we really appreciate you and all your work, and thank you for everything. You're an inspiration to all of us.
Thank you. Well, Ian, thank you for all your ongoing work. We got to keep pushing back. Cheryl, I agree with everything Ian said about you. That's all I got to say.
You're fantastic yourself. So I'd like to get back to everyone's questions, if that's
I answered a lot in writing, so whoever has a follow-up on that, shoot.
Well, I've got some. So there we go. Someone wants to know if it makes sense when you're doing Israel advocacy and someone says something hostile about Israel, when should you confront and engage, and when should you keep quiet and not engage? Some individuals will never change their mind, and it's upsetting to engage with them and uncomfortable to keep quiet. Well, I'll go even further than that. We have someone in our audience that I actually know has gone to rallies. I've been to rallies with her. And if she wants to come on, I think that would be great, Moran. So
thank you.
Basically, it's not just frustrating, it could be dangerous. I know, Virag, when you were at JNF, wasn't there a directive not to even engage because people are concerned about security? On the other hand, it is frustrating. You don't want to keep quiet. So when we do rallies and we go to different places, we always do our best to make sure that there's enough security, and we notify the police every time, because you don't want to just walk over and hold up hostage signs or Me Too signs or anything without security. Unfortunately, we're in a world right now where you need to think about that. Virag, how did you deal with it? I know you spoke to a few people.
Yes.
I'm just making sure that I'm unmuted, and then we can go ahead for Marav. Yeah, I'm unmuted, correct?
You're unmuted.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Marav.
Okay, so to answer to Cheryl's question, it is a tricky business, because before October 7th, I was really, really encouraging everyone to have the hard conversations. I do believe in dialogue. I do believe that we need to understand the other side. However, even during peace times, I had a 3-second rule. And that was, if in 3 seconds, I can get to a common denomination with the partner that I'm having the argument or debate with, that Hamas is a terrorist organization. If we have that in common, we have something to talk about. If we couldn't agree on this, I move on. That person is not my person to talk to, not my person to change their beliefs. And this is the answer for the question that was raised. However, now, since October 7th, I feel that the gap between the parties is so big that it's often unbridgeable. I feel like we are in a soccer game. You know, I'm Free Palestine, I am Israel. But we forget that life and actual real lives are at stake. It is not a soccer game. So I still want to encourage people to have a dialogue, primarily not on social media because it's almost impossible there. But for example, at a conference where they were protesting us, I didn't get the memo on the first day that actually the CIA and the FBI asked us not to interact because of the security measures that they have put in. So I made a mistake and I did talk with one of the fellow, and he was very peaceful. So we had a dialogue, and guess what? He was not there to protect Jews. He was there as a brainwashed young fellow American who was protesting colonizations, and he was voting for communism. So eventually my whole talk with him was whether communism is something to strive for in America. This naive 20-something years old found this intersectionality buzz so vehemently part of their identity that even after October 7th, they are not out boycotting a terrorist organization, but they are out under the pretense of Free Palestine. It also means we can change the system in America and we can go towards communism. So if you understand the game, you actually feel sorry for them. And perhaps because you pity them, you are more patient towards them because it's a brainwashed generation. So know really have a threshold. If they say Hamas is freedom fighters, move on. There is nothing to talk about at this point. If they agree that Hamas is a terrorist organization, then engage further. You know, what is the solution? What would your proposal be? And so on and so on.
Moran, I have seen you at actual physical protests and speaking out on behalf of the Israeli community. Do you have any recommendations?
So yeah, so a few things. First of all, we never know how to assess the situation. So we arranged quite a few rallies and demonstrations here in Atlanta. And I think that we always care for security. We get a lot of frustration, honestly, because a lot of the times we have to really organize and contact the police and make sure that they actually come in. And a lot of my community member, our community member, but the Israelis really asking the question of why the Palestinians can just go on the street and scream and do whatever they want, and we have to wait for 2 weeks for the police. And the reason is that, and I think that's also the message that we have to bring to the world, is because we are the one that's in risk. We are the one that striving for peace. We are the one that not gonna go on the street and get crazy and rip America flags and always coming with American flags, and we see ourselves as one unit with America and any American out there, including other Muslims, by the way. So when we go into rallies, I can say that I'm not afraid, but the reality is that every time we go, we see a lot more participants, a lot more people that that really to hear our voice. I would say that in the last rally that we did in the Beltline, we have seen, I want to say, probably 40% of people that are pro-Israel and 30% that are not necessarily pro-Israel, actually, that was really wanted to look that way. But I think that our audience is really the non-dangerous pro-Palestinians. So I'm not fearful when I go to a rally at all. I always bring the police. And the more I get into it, the less afraid I'm getting, because, as I said, college students, and I think that our biggest war right now is those that are actually educated, but not really, and I mean educated as going to college, talk verbally. All my life, I had to mentally fight those that are not necessarily educated, coming from very low social economic, and it tends statistically to be more dangerous. And I'm talking about obviously within Israel. And necessarily I'm talking statistically, not that I'm saying that those that are not having school education are those that bring in the problems necessarily, but statistically it's kind of coming like that where I grew up. Nowadays, my fear is not about going to a rally and protest. So I definitely, as Merav here said, I wouldn't approach someone that is very against Israel. And you can see that, you can see their behaviors, but I would approach those that are not educated enough. And I would approach those that willing at least to listen or argue in a very nice manner. And I hear a lot of voices that are brainwashed and really telling me that are afraid for the Palestinians, and what about their babies, what about their kids, what about their families, and they don't see the full picture. And honestly, within the Jewish community, I also see those questions coming up. And I think that the narrative that I tend to take, if I'm shifting a little bit from just the security to how to approach it, the narrative that I'm taking is not necessarily about Israel, because it almost seems like it doesn't matter how many times we explain that we could have finished this war in one day if we wanted to, but it's really taking so long because we do care about the kids and the civilians and the people in Gaza, and we do care. But as much as you explain, as much as you say there was ceasefire on October 6th, no matter what we talked about on our end, what happens to our people, the numbers, when I explain about, imagine that Alabama, which is just around the corner, attacking Georgia, and attacking actually Atlanta, and everywhere you go, you know, people that something happened to them, to kind of explain the situation, they don't get it. So a lot of the time, the narrative that I'm taking is to talk about the Palestinians, because I grew up in Arabs in Israel. As all know, they are a very big part of our population. And in Israel, there is differences, but we live peacefully. And also, many people doesn't know that, but civilians from Gaza used to come and work in Israel, use our hospitals. They leverage Israel in any way and point, and they are disappointed too. So when I'm desperate, when I'm thinking about the worst, I'm looking at the big picture. And in the big picture, Israel right now, not just fighting for Israel, not just fighting for the Westerns, not just fighting for America, not just fighting for, honestly, the war, the threat of Iran and Russia and China on the US. Israel does fight right now for the civilians in Gaza, because they are suffering as well. And and of course, I'm talking about the little bit of civilians that doesn't support Hamas, that just there for the cause and trying to move south as Israel guide them to, and just want to walk away from the situation. Those are the people that Israel is fighting for, with the hope of overcome the situation, just terminate Hamas, and hopefully at one point have some civil government for the Palestinians, so they will have some generally fair and quality life, if that makes sense.
It does, and I appreciate you sharing. I think that you know, we need to say that there are many people who just are brainwashed and they're not going to actually listen to anything you just said. But it's good that, you know, you're here educating and again, I think, on social media, we haven't even talked about advocacy with our government. We have to have our voices heard there. There are always, recently, just in Georgia, we just had believe it or not, we had to vote to decide if Hamas as a terrorist organization should be condemned. Now, thankfully, the decision was yes. But for those who actually, and there was some who said no, they should be hearing from us. They should be hearing from.
Sorry to interrupt you here, but how did this vote even happen when, according to the US, as a state, Hamas is the designated terrorist organization? How can Atlanta or Georgia overrule?
There's federal laws and federal mandates, and there's state laws and state mandates. So
that's international law. So if US,
it's the same thing as IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Act, which we've been trying to get passed here, that defines anti-Semitism. We've been trying to get that passed here for quite a few years, and it's been accepted. But unfortunately, even though it's been accepted in many states, Georgia has had these people that probably shouldn't be weighing in on anti-Semitism, like CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood, and Jewish Voice of Peace, which I mentioned to all of you, truly is not peaceful. I witnessed that firsthand. Feel free to read my post on my page. It's open to all. Students for Justice in Palestine. There are hate groups, and they're one problem with our definition that the majority of us actually want to protect us from hate crimes. Again, that's not freedom of speech. It's an actual hate crime. Someone beats you up because you're a Jew and you support Israel. They should be charged with an extra hate crime. But right now, no definition of anti-Semitism. And their problem is that Israel is mentioned. Again, because there's Jews, and if you don't support Israel, that's okay. But if you do, then, oh no, you're a Zionist and it's a problem. And by the way, everyone, you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist. We should all be Zionists. Let's spread Zionism everywhere, because it's a beautiful word and we need to own it and take pride. Virag, would you like to share the meaning? Because many people twist it, and I know that you know it very well also, not being Jewish. You are a Zionist.
Yeah, I'm a proud Zionist, and for me, it's a no-brainer. And what I dislike in the US, that if you're a non-Jew, for sure you're an evangelical. This is not, think beyond the evangelicals. Their Zionism comes from theology and the Bible. But if you want to talk to people beyond them, then explain to them, Zionism is the civil rights movement of the Jewish people. So if you ask me, if I'm a proud Hungarian, how could I not be a Zionist as well? But the problem here is, if you go on the streets in New York now, you are going to see this young generation burning American flags as well. For them, nationalism, patriotism, all became a curse word. And hence, Zionism is the enemy in their eyes. So this is a generational problem that starts at home, that starts at schools, that this generation doesn't grow up as proud American or proud nationals of their own countries. Everyone wants to be a global kid, which is great. We are all universally human beings. But what this generation doesn't know and cannot know, because they didn't go through hardship yet in that sense, that this global kidness eventually makes you lacking grounding, lacking fundamentals. You are going to lose your traditions, your values, your customs, everything that keeps you grounded, the family values. People celebrate. There is a saying from it's an older Zionist, like pre-Herzl Zionist, who said, Shabbat kept the Jewish people together, the tradition of Shabbat. This is why even non-Orthodox and non-practicing Jews kept Shabbat, and the Shabbat kept Judaism alive. And the young generation don't understand how these traditions have a collective, bonding together. So this is why they are so against Zionism. This is why they are against America's patriotism. This is why they are burning both countries' flags.
And someone just asked about, dealing with it in schools, dealing with it on campuses, professors sharing anti-Israel propaganda. And I think, Ian, in the beginning, you touched upon it very well. Some of these universities are being funded with money that actually supports terrorism. There is no doubt in my mind that money that's supposed to go to innocent Palestinians to help their lives are going to Hamas, because it's the second richest, I believe it's still the second. Now it could be the first after everything that's been happening, but the wealthiest terrorist organization in the world. I mean, somebody's funding them, somebody's funding these schools, and unfortunately,
Well, the money's
that's what
coming.
we're
Look,
seeing.
I've seen the trail of the money. The money's coming from Iran, from Qatar. Qatar has been the Muslim Brotherhood's based in Qatar. They're funding all the U.S. Universities to billions. And at Texas A&M, they're funding nuclear research. At Texas A&M, Qatar's funding it. This is all in black and white, folks. So in the aftermath of October 7th, we'll have to be able to correctly interpret the hatred of Jews around the world and its echo among Muslims in Europe, North America, and develop adequate countermeasures to everything, and including the funding, Cheryl, in the universities, because right now Jews are terrified of being students on campus. And it's good this has come to light since October 7th, but this has been going on for years. If you look at the BDS movement, you know, they made Jewish students persona non grata on campus for years. And these are the people saying to boycott, divest from Israel, calling Israel falsely and egregiously an apartheid state. It's a completely false statement. So again, the answer is right now to find, you know, how far this is echoed among Muslims in Europe and North America, and develop adequate countermeasures.
And as far as schools go and universities, I've noticed that there are some people who are pulling funding, which is wonderful. I mean, you can't be supporting schools that allow the students to terrorize other students. Like, I don't care what your background is. And if it wasn't Jewish people and it was someone else, I'd be saying the same thing. It has to stop. And we, as individuals and citizens and advocates, need to be the ones that stop it. So writing the president, showing up. We partnered with Hillel on a walk for Jewish students, and it was very powerful. I mean, you know, showing our support. Recently, I've had to deal with it in, you know, high schools. It's horrible. It was happening here
You
in
did a
middle
great
schools.
job on that. I read it, by the way, what
Thank
you
you.
did.
Thank you very much.
It was amazing, and thank you for that. You called them out.
Of course, but I mean, we need to call them out. We need to hold them accountable. There's somebody making a salary who's deciding that they're going to allow students to be terrorized. Now, that's not okay. And they're accountable to someone else. And the goal should be, as a collective, having our voices heard, not lighting things on fire, not storming the castle, not, you know, behaving in a way that we see others do. I would never encourage that for anyone. But I mean, you would truly be surprised at how much even, you know, phone calls or emails or making appointments to talk to, you know, your local politician about something that actually matters to you. It goes far. And I know that unfortunately, we're a bit outnumbered. So we need to make sure that we educate as many people as possible. And someone asked, how do we get outside the bubble? You know, my social media is not being seen. Start tagging people. They may not like it. They may unfriend you, but really, I mean, if you want them to hear what you have to say and you don't know if they're going to see it, tag them, forward it to them, ask them to share. It's effort, I know, and we all lack time, but think about what happens if we're all silent. This does not get better. We've only seen that it can get worse, and God forbid it does. So I thank you all for being here. Somebody asked one more question, we'll answer. And if you have any questions, you know, you could always email me, and I know that Virag and Ian would be incredibly gracious and answer, and I'll ask them on your behalf, or if you have questions for me, I'm offering. Hope you guys don't mind that I just voluntold you. You answering questions. So we'll also send out an email and a thank you for attending. And I'd like to be able to share on that email some of what other organizations have said about advocacy. Maybe that will help. And we're here because the truth is that if we don't speak out and we don't do anything, then who is going to?
That's the key. We have to have the courage to speak out. Education and action go hand in hand. Education without action leads to sterility. Action without education leads to chaos. And if we are not going to speak out, it's just going to worsen. Cheryl, it's been an honor to be here. I just want to thank everyone. I want to thank Viraj and Cheryl and Lee, and of course Anita, but I want to thank everybody else, all the attendees, for being here. Please, folks, support Atlanta Israel Coalition. They need your donations. They're making a difference, but they need help. They need support. I'm supporting them. I'm urging everybody else to support them. Also, please read my new book. It came out a few days, but we've updated it since the October 7th attacks. It's called BIGOT. It's available on Amazon. It's all about contemporary anti-Semitism. In fact, in the book, I say that celebrities like Kanye West, Mel Gibson, Roger Waters inspired Hamas over the years. Hamas had posters of Kanye West and Roger Waters, according to witnesses, in their offices, and were playing Pink Floyd music. But a lot of this is in the book, The History, so please read BIGOT. But also, more importantly, please support Atlanta Israel Coalition, folks. I'm extremely picky where I park my money with organizations, because most organizations, they only give 10 or 12% to the cause. Cheryl gives almost 100%, like 99% to the cause, 100%. I've never seen anything like this. And she's making a difference, but she needs your support, folks. So please donate. I wish everybody a happy Hanukkah, for the Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year. Why in this land of plenty, folks, does the joy of peace and love escape many? Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. Virag, do you have anything you want to add?
I mean, after this, almost nothing.
I do love the why is in the land of plenty. That is beautiful, Ian.
Right. No, I mean, obviously, I know your work, so I'm not going to repeat what Ian said, but I can just re-echo that indeed, I think your work is underrated, and we need to change that. You really are out there for the community day after day, especially now when the war is on. I thank you for the opportunity to be here, and whoever has any questions to either of us, as Cheryl said, we are all available. We are in this together, Jews and non-Jews. I can't emphasize that enough. This is not solely a Jewish issue. And what I keep on telling to people who are like disliking Israel and the Jews, I keep on saying them, you can. That's your subjective, opinion, but at least be selfish and love yourself enough that you stand against terrorism. Ask them, would you like to live under a leadership of Hamas? If your answer is no, we are actually fighting the same battle. It doesn't matter what you are saying about Israel and Jews at large, because right now you are fighting Hamas. And if we could unite about that, once we kick Hamas out, all these people would realize that Israel was on the right side the whole time. So that is a trick here. And Hak Hanukkah Sameach to everyone who joined. And if you're not Jewish, then yes, happy Christmas later.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you so much, Virag and Ian, and thank you all for being here. And thank you, Lee, for being behind the scenes. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.